All right, James, we've all seen them, right? The wig clips, the memes, the hot takes. I mean, you can't scroll 5 seconds without seeing something about this whole Cardi B thing. But honestly, the thing is, what actually matters here? Well, it's not a criminal case, and no one's talking jail time for starters. It's a civil lawsuit, purely about money, between Cardi B and a security guard, Imani Ellis. And it's all playing out in Los Angeles County, like at the Alhambra courthouse. The trial actually just kicked off this week. It was around August 26th, 2025, if you're keeping track. And honestly, the headlines you've seen, they're mostly about her hairstyle changes, not any sworn testimony, which is just, well, it's wild, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's absolutely everywhere. But hang on, so the viral wig swap moment, that actually did happen then? Because I thought that was, I don't know, just like an internet fabrication or something? Was that even real? And if so, how does that even, factor into a legal case?
Oh, it absolutely happened, James. I mean, yes, it totally confused an attorney, and the internet had an absolute field day, of course. It's a fun clip, sure, but here's the kicker, right? It's zero proof of anything that actually happened back in 2018. And that's where the case lives or dies. That's the part most people are just completely skipping. If you want the real story, the incident, the claims, and what witnesses actually said under oath, then, you gotta stick around, because that's what we're talking about. Next up, it's what really went down at that Beverly Hills Proctor's office in 2018, and why everyone's telling two very different versions of the same day.
So picture this, right? It's a really quiet medical building in Beverly Hills. Cardi's about 4 months pregnant at the time, not public yet with the news, and she's just heading to her OBGYN appointment. And this security guard, Imani Ellis, approaches her. Words fly, a heated exchange. Ellis later says that Cardi actually scratched her face with a fingernail, spat on her, and used some really offensive language. She claims that moment totally wrecked her job, her confidence, and even pushed her into getting cosmetic work for a scar. That's really the heart of this lawsuit, James. Not a nightclub, not some backstage brawl. It's a doctor's office hallway in 2018. It's a very specific setting for this kind of, alleged incident.
Wow, so it's a doctor's office. Okay, that changes the perception somewhat. But you mentioned money earlier, Alex. I mean, the headlines were absolutely massive, weren't they? With figures like $24 million being thrown around. Is that even accurate? And how does that kind of number relate to a civil suit for, alleged scratches and spitting? Because that just sounds like an astronomical amount.
Yeah, it's a huge number, isn't it? So Ellis filed a civil suit, remember, not criminal, and she's seeking damages. Cardi actually told the court, Ellis is suing me for $24 million. That's a big number, it gets big headlines, and yes, it totally fuels all those Cardi's in trouble thumbnails you're seeing everywhere. But, and this is super important, James, remember, this is about proving physical contact and injury. It's not about sending anyone to a cell. That distinction between civil and criminal, that's where a lot of the online chatter really goes off the rails, But that's only one version of events. Next, we're going to get into what Cardi says really happened and why her nails became an unexpected plot point in all of this. It's really quite interesting.
Okay, so Cardi's testimony, when she got on the stand, it's pretty simple. No touching. Full stop. She says Ellis actually followed her, looked like she was recording her, and that's really what set off a superheated argument outside the OBGYN office. Cardi admits, she was angry, she was pregnant, she was stressed, she felt really protective, but she just keeps repeating the same line over and over. I didn't touch her. And, the courtroom, they really pressed her on the nail question. Literally. Were her nails, sharp enough to cut someone? Cardi said nope, they weren't pointy, they were closer to rounded, and they were under an inch long.
In other words, they were definitely not tiny knives, not weapons.
Right, okay. That's a pretty strong denial then. So she's basically saying, look, I had words, but no physical contact. I mean, and the nails thing, that makes sense. So with that, does she just completely dismiss the idea of this massive $24 million payout? I mean, how does she reconcile, her version of events with such a huge financial claim coming from Ellis?
Yeah, she absolutely pushed back on the dollar signs like really hard. According to Cardi, Ellis wants that $24 million, and that's precisely why Cardi calls this whole thing a money grab. Agree with her or not, that's her framing, right? And it totally explains her confidence walking into court. The core point really stands, James. She owns the argument, she denies the contact, and she says that the whole video phone moment is what, lit the fuse, not any sort of physical interaction. But here's the thing, witnesses matter way more than sound bites in court, obviously. So next up, we're going to get into what the receptionist and the doctor, the two people who were actually there, said they saw under oath. And it definitely throws a wrench into Ellis's narrative. So we've got these two people, right? They've got no viral clips, no memes floating around, just front row seats to what actually happened. First, there's the receptionist, Tiara Malcolm. She said she actually stepped in, separated the two women, and, crucially, she saw no physical hit from Cardi whatsoever. And get this, James, the only person who actually walked away with a cut, it was Tiara herself. And she says Ellis caused it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that totally flips the story most people think they know right on its head. It's a huge detail.
Wow, wait, so the receptionist, the neutral party, actually got hurt, and she's saying Ellis caused it, and she saw no contact from Cardi? That's a pretty powerful counter-narrative, isn't it? So what about the doctor then? What did Dr. Fink say about all of this? Did he corroborate any of the claims, particularly about Ellis's injuries?
No, not at all, actually. Then there's Dr. David Fink, right? He was calm, he was clinical, and pretty direct in his testimony. He said he saw Ellis swing on the receptionist's shoulder. And he also says, very clearly, he didn't see any fresh facial injury on Ellis that day. If you're on that jury, James, that's a pretty big problem for the whole $24 million she scratched my face claim, Not a TikTok moment, but it definitely lands with impact in a courtroom. Now, testimony isn't everything, of course. There's always the question of records, photos, timelines. If this happened the way Ellis says, where's the clean proof trail? That's what the jury will quietly ask while the internet argues about hair, It's a completely different diet of information. The internet, James, absolutely loves a clip, but juries, they want receipts. Two very, very different diets of information, right? What's solid so far is the sworn testimony from actual witnesses and the whole medical office context. What's not really out there is a clean video proving a scratch in that hallway. No slow-mo replay, no lab coat referee throwing a flag. So the case really leans on who you believe, what was actually documented that day, and whether the injury story lines up with the timing and treatment. And remember the standard here, this isn't about handcuffs, it's about more likely than not. If Ellis convinces the jury that contact happened and caused real damage, the number on that check could be pretty heavy. If the receptionist and doctor sound consistent and the paper trail looks thin, the claim just collapses fast. Either way, a meme doesn't move a verdict. Records and consistency do.
Right, more likely than not. That's a crucial distinction for civil cases, isn't it? But, the reason so many people think Cardi's, cooked or in trouble really seems to be about all the sensational stuff we've already mentioned. The wigs, the wardrobe, the viral edits. So how much of that is actually influencing the perception versus the reality inside the courtroom?
Oh, absolutely everything, James. Let's talk about the evidence your timeline loves. The wig swap, the luxury fits, the side-eye. Fun? Absolutely. Useful? Barely. The clip where Cardi changes wigs and the lawyer looks lost is perfect for memes because it feels like chaos with glitter on top. But none of that proves a scratch in 2018, and it definitely doesn't prove damages today. It just proves people like shiny things, you know? Courts don't. They want boring stuff. Testimony that lines up, dates that match, documents that don't wobble. And that's why so many folks think Cardi's cooked. Viral edits are stitched to make you feel like you watched the whole trial in 15 seconds. You didn't. You watched a highlight reel of courtroom theater with the commercials cut out, you know? The case lives in those commercials, those quiet moments where facts actually get tested. So what the jury is really deciding? That's next, and it's closer to a coin flip than people think.
Okay, so forget the memes, right? The jury, they get a checklist. First point, did Cardi make physical contact on purpose? Not was it messy, not was she loud. We're talking intentional contact that wasn't allowed. Second point, was there a real injury tied to that exact moment? Not a year later, not it probably came from that. We're talking clear cause and effect. And the third thing, James, how much is that injury worth, if it happened at all? That's the damages math everyone keeps skipping while arguing about wigs, you know. So this totally turns into a credibility tug-of-war. Ellis says scratch and spit. Cardi says words only. The receptionist says she was the one who got cut, and not by Cardi. The doctor says he didn't see facial injuries on Ellis that day. Jurors will weigh tone, consistency, and whether the paperwork and timing back anyone up. The civil standard is lighter, more likely than not, but light doesn't mean guess. If the story drifts, the number drops. If the story locks in, the number climbs. Simple, boring, decisive.
It sounds like it all comes down to really solid, consistent evidence then, doesn't it? I mean, ignoring the whole spectacle. And yes, I keep hearing this idea that Cardi B might, face jail time or something really severe if she loses. So can you just definitively clarify what the actual consequences are for her if Ellis wins this case?
Absolutely, James, and it's a huge point that keeps getting lost. There is no jail door waiting on the other side of this. Even a win for Ellis just means a check, not cuffs. And if the jury thinks the injury claim isn't supported, that $24 million number drops from a mountain to a pebble. That's why the memes feel so loud, but the verdict, when it comes, will sound quiet. It's just yes, no, and how much. Bottom line, most people are reacting to clips. You're reacting to facts. The claim is specific, the denial is specific. Two neutral witnesses told a story that doesn't match the accusation. That's the heart of what actually happened. Everything else is just noise in a shiny wrapper. If this cleared the fog for you, stick around. When the next hearing day hits and the final decision lands, we'll cut through the spin again and keep it simple. What the jury heard, what they believed, and what it really means. Until then, don't let a wig change rewrite a case file.